And it's the mass de-skilling in every aspect of life. People are just handing responsibility for every aspect of life to other businesses, other corporations, and then that allows you to be less sovereign over your own life and have less ability to control it.
Simon, how did you find Carnivore?
Like a lot of people, it's been a bit of a long and winding road, as the Beatles would say. It's probably a story that a lot of people resonate with. It's not unusual, but it does show what you can do when you put a bit of effort in, make some changes, and keep going with it for the longer term. My personal life and my business life have pretty much mirrored each other. I've been a physiotherapist for 30 years, hypnotherapist for 4 or 5, and GAPS nutritionist for about the last year or so. And that's all as a result of the changes that I've made in my own life and with my family, really. I've had many health issues that people would just probably see as normal and just get on with in life, but they do build up over time. And when you know what's going on, you realise that they're just the beginnings of what would probably be chronic inflammatory disease in the long run if you just let them keep going. So I have migraines for roughly 30 odd years, almost the same amount of time I've been a physio, built up to almost every 2 weeks, sometimes every week. Not the sort that would have to be in a black darkened room, but it would make a day disappear. I could still function, but nausea, headache, body aches, digestive problems, all linked in together. And they become normal. I've tried many things over the years to try and sort it out. And some helped and some didn't, but in the long run, they never really went away until now. I also have lifelong IBS, probably since I was in my late teens, although I didn't recognise it at the time. And that does link into the migraines, a similar sort of cause when you understand these things. But again, it became part of normal life. I didn't really understand it at all, so I just kept doing what I was doing and just got on with things. I have arthritis in my right knee. I fractured my knee when I was 15, and probably about 5 years ago, it was creaky, painful, and I was struggling upstairs, etc. And again, oh well, that's part of life. I'm a physio. I know what these things lead to. It's not something to look forward to, but that's just what it is. Low energy. I was regularly needing naps in the afternoon. And again, I understand they're pretty beneficial. You get the growth hormone release, but they were just becoming the norm. Broken sleep, up 3 times a night to the toilet. Again, oh well, that's normal of aging, and everything's just normal. But it's actually not. When you put all these things together, it's not that pleasant experience to be getting up every day with a foggy brain and wondering if you're going to get a headache at 5 o'clock in the morning. Eyesight was steadily getting worse as well. Part of aging, that's what you're told. And all that stuff you just accept. Now, along with this sort of journey, I was married and got divorced, and I met a Hungarian woman, Melly, who's my current partner, and she's a massive investigator. She's a philosopher. She came from a really traditional background where everybody had large gardens, relatively small houses, but they kept their own animals as well, pigs and chickens, and everybody got together and helped kill the pig once a year, and everybody had the meat, and they knew where everything came from. And she really wanted to recreate that life in Scotland when we got together. So we have about 1/4 of an acre. We keep our own birds, chickens, ducks, guinea fowls, turkeys. So supply all our own eggs, a lot of our own meat. And for a long time, we grew all our own vegetables. We run a sort of circular system where all the chicken poop goes into the garden and all the garden rubbish goes into the chickens. It's just one big cycle. So you know where everything comes from. It's all in-house, and it tastes incredible. So this went on. We had a son 11 years ago, Mikey, and it turns out he was autistic. And Melly, being the philosopher investigator, investigated. And my life's basically, I go to work and I come back home, and Melly downloads the day's information into my head when I get in. And that's probably sparked a lot of my interest around the nutrition and the mindset side of things, and why I went into that. So we've made lots of changes over the years in relation to Mikey, her son, just to give him the best life we possibly can. And give him the best outcomes. And part of that is we home educate him. So we use Steiner method, which is child-led education, and he gets to learn around his interests, which are varied and many. And the nutrition side of that has obviously been a big part. We've been vegetarian, been vegan, raw vegan, and eventually for the last 16 months, carnivore. Now, all the media, all the information you read leads you to believe that vegetables are the healthiest thing on the planet. And absolutely, we did feel better, because we were eating processed rubbish before. And if you're going to clean out your system, you're going to feel better as the body gets rid of all those plants and toxins and things in your body that it doesn't need. But over time, you actually need to feed the body. And eventually, I started to lose weight. I've got a pretty fast metabolism, and actually wasn't looking any better or feeling any better after roughly a year or so of trying each of these. And Melly at some point came across Carnivore, and she suggested it, and I was resistant, very, very resistant, because I loved my vegetables. And I didn't see the point. But she eventually, through attrition, and Hungarians are very persuasive, and philosophers can argue very, very well, I decided to give it a go for 30 days. And after 30 days, the migraines had gone. Now, to be honest, in the first 2 weeks, I was a grumpy bugger. I didn't enjoy it. I felt knackered. I felt terrible. And realizing now, on reading around and the knowledge I have, it's just your body getting rid of the toxins that have been stored in there. And that's not a pleasant experience for anybody, but it's part of the natural healing process. And because the migraines had disappeared, I thought, well, there's something here, we'll keep going. And after 16 months, IBS is 80% sorted, not 100%. It's a journey. Knee pain is gone, completely gone. No creakiness anymore. Energy is steady, don't have naps anymore, and I sleep all night. So every bit of health that was a problem before has steadily improved. Eyesight had an eye test probably about a month ago. It's actually improved. If you told me that a year ago, I would have thought you were completely joking. Teeth are actually healthier. I went to the dentist a couple of weeks ago and she said, yeah, just come back in a year. Don't need to see you. First time that's ever happened. So there's lots of little sides that go on this journey as we go forward. And I just found it's improved my health completely in every way. And the family. So Melly, she had a few hormonal issues. Periods were getting irregular and a problem. They are now completely normal, and the pain is much less, and the mood swings are almost zero in comparison to what they were. Mikey, before we started this diet, was starting to have meltdowns that were uncontrollable. I remember at one point rugby tackling him in the woods because he'd run out of the car and holding the car door shut for 20 minutes before we could leave. He has Tourette's, and that was worse with sugar and any sort of screen time we had. Again, it's 80% better. Meltdowns are gone completely. So for all of us, we've seen improvements, and there's zero reason to stop eating in this way, in my view. And having qualified as a nutritionist with the GAPS nutritional protocol, you have heard of Natasha Campbell McBride. I now understand the background of why it's helping and what to do going forward.
Right. So, well, that's fantastic that it's helped with everything. And especially because, you get into the same mindset I was in as well, which is like, yeah, just getting old. It's just, it's just part of aging. It's going to get worse from here, right? And to have those things clear up is just phenomenal. How long was it before you noticed that the knee was no longer bothering you?
That was probably 5 to 6 months in. And then I was able to go upstairs and large steps without having to throw my body up and feeling pain. And that's continued to improve. The muscle strength around the knee is just getting better and better. Whereas in the past it was getting worse and I was favouring it and limping and all the things the compensations that would go with any sort of joint injury.
Did you have moments once the pain went away? Did you have moments where you were like, I want to go up the stairs again. I want to test this out. This is such a nice feeling.
Oh, 100%. I mean, even in the gym, squatting, I would push the side. Or I was doing lunges, one leg was stronger than the other. And yes, it just disappeared. And, being a physio, I know exactly what goes on when a knee has arthritis. And everything we're taught is it's progressive and you're going to need injections and operations and potentially a knee replacement eventually. And then that was in the back of my mind because I've seen hundreds of them over the years. And my brain is still not quite understanding it. It's thinking, how is that possible? Because that's how I was trained. But I know how I feel. And it's given me a new lease of life physically.
Right. So I guess there's no going back for you and the family.
100% not. And everybody's aghast completely. They don't understand everything you read, all the influencers online who are saying exactly the opposite. It's very easy persuaded back in the opposite direction and to second guess yourself. But your body is a very intelligent organism and it tells you exactly how it's feeling all the time and it's giving you signs. And if you feel this good compared to 16 months ago, why would you want to go back to eating the way you did? And the knowledge I have now shows me it's perfectly sustainable in the long term from a nutrition point of view. You get everything you need from meat and fat and dairy and eggs if that's how you want to eat. It's also important in how you source it. As I said, that we have all our own animals. That doesn't supply all our meat. I've really good relationships with local butchers, local suppliers of sustainable organic meat, gamekeepers who supply me deer, and people say it's so expensive, but I can get an entire deer carcass for £5 a kilo. I don't know what that translates in around the world, but that's extremely cheap. When I was 17, I went to Australia and worked in a sheep station for a year, and I learnt butchery skills there, and they stand you in good stead. So, I do a lot of my own butchery and processing. And again, that's just connection to your animals. You know where they come from. You've looked after them. You know what they've been fed. You know the quality of the meat, and you can supply it in the way that you want, the cuts that you want. It's a skill that everybody should learn, and all cultures in the past, and even 2 generations ago, people were processing their own meat, and it's now a skill that's being steadily lost, and it's basically handing responsibility for your food to somebody else, which in the past was not a thing really.
Right. It's basically like life is so easy now, but by having an easier life, what we've effectively done is given all these other people control of us, you know?
It's huge when you zoom out and look at life in the Western world. It's incredibly different compared to even just 2, 3 generations ago. And then you look in the past and hundreds of generations before that, it didn't really change all that well all that much in the family home. And it's the mass de-skilling in every aspect of life. People are just handing responsibility for every aspect of the life to other businesses, other corporations, and then that allows you to be less sovereign over your own life and have less ability to control it.
Yeah. So how have friends and extended family reacted to the way you're eating?
Quite a mixed reaction. My family certainly initially were very sceptical and still are. I'm probably a little bit the black sheep, but some of the discussions are coming around for some people. Friends, again, very, very strange. People like their bread, they like their carbs, they like their vegetables. They don't see the point of giving them up. It's a healthy, balanced diet, apparently. Well, they're all got health problems, so they can't see the connection. As a GAPS practitioner, part of GAPS is no plant GAPS, which is basically carnivore with meat stock added, and we have chicken soup very regularly. It's one of the healthiest things you can put in your mouth. So I treat a lot of clients, and in conversations with some friends, they are coming around. They're trying it, just seeing what's happened, and it's very persuasive when your own life is turned around, and that's the reason for it. You're the example, so people do see that, and your energy changes, and they do watch and observe you. And so there are quite a few friends who have come around to the idea, and I mean, I'm so persuaded by this. Actually involved in a carnivore documentary now, nutritional documentary that should be completed by the end of this year. I'll be able to talk more about it after May when we finish filming, but it's a very exciting project.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, wow. Um, So, like day to day, I mean, you apart from the meat that you're buying and processing yourself, like you're eating from what you're effectively raising in your garden, right? So the chickens, the ducks, etc., and the eggs
Yeah.
from there. How often are you eating throughout the day?
It started off initially with 3 because I ate a huge amount of food. As I said, I got a fairly fast metabolism, so I had to fuel that a lot. So I'd be up in the morning eating peanut butter and banana toast, and then I'd be eating breakfast, then mid morning, then lunch, then mid afternoon, then tea, and then supper, as we call it in Scotland. Now I'll probably have coffee with butter and collagen first thing, and then I'll eat about 10, 11 o'clock, and then maybe mid-afternoon and something small in the evening. So 2.5 times a day. And the beauty is that you don't have the hunger. I was a very hangry man before. I'd get the energy dips and the cold sweats and the dizziness and just grumpy, as I mentioned. And now the energy just flows all day. It's just steady. And you sometimes have to remind yourself, oh God, it's 3 in the afternoon, I better have something to eat. You just don't get those cravings anymore, and it's because your body's flipped from glucose as fuel to ketones as fuel, and fat's a slow, steady energy source, whereas glucose is fast and quick and it needs refueled all the time. And again, that's a revelation, just to have that mood steady, the energy steady, and just not feel hungry all the time.
It's really nice to turn off that emotional thing as well with
Mm.
food, right?
Yep. Yep, totally, and that's the other thing. The cravings for sugar, the cravings for alcohol, the bread that you wanted, it just disappears, and nobody can believe that because they love their sweets, they love their bread, they love they call it my sugar craving, and it just disappears, and it's also understanding that the craving's not actually yours; it's the bacteria in your gut that want that sugar, and as you change them, and the beneficial bacteria, the ones that burn on the fat, become into precedence, then they don't need the sugar, and you just stop wanting it.
Mm. So when I watch the TV, the international TV, or on YouTube or whatever, like if I'm watching something like BBC or whatever, usually the news is reporting stuff that's kind of more London centric and England centric, you know. So is the health crisis pretty much the same in Scotland as it is in England as far as obesity, diabetes, that kind of thing?
100%. It's probably worse. The Scottish diet is very processed, very processed. All the supermarkets are processed food. Fish and chips is a common staple up here. Our NHS in Scotland is slightly better than England's because the funding's different. But the obesity is, it's like everywhere in the Western world. It's trending up and up and up. And even in some of the Eastern European countries, as I speak to Melly and she goes back home, the shops are changing. Tesco's got in. The local shops are getting less. There's less local supply. The processed food is starting to appear. So that traditional life is slowly disappearing, and the obesity and the disease is upticking at the same time, as we're seeing pretty much everywhere. And people can't join the dots. They don't, or they can't, or they don't want to. I'm not sure, but it's all
Yeah.
around.
And sometimes it feels to me like it's almost like a little bit of, well, I just don't want to know, because it's like it's more like it's comfortable not to know, like the TV commercials and the government, they're saying just have a balanced diet, and I think I'm eating balanced, so it's all okay. Eventually I'm going to be all right. It's a little bit like don't tell me.
Psychology is a fascinating one. I mean, I learnt that as a hypnotherapist, and that was partly due to what I'd just seen with clients over the years. The mental aspect of ill health, the depression, anxiety. Your subconscious is a really clever little beastie. If somebody tells your subconscious something 4 times from a place of authority, it believes it, and it's very uncomfortable to step out who you think you are. So we build up this personality over time, and if something tries to disrupt that, we resist it because we think that's who we are. And yeah, that resistance stops you moving forward. And I heard a great analogy recently that uh, a person who's comfortable with their discomfort will sit in a pile of animal poop rather than stepping over the fence into the green grass because it's warm and it's comfortable and they know what it feels like. And so familiarity is somewhere people really want to be, whereas the change is slightly unsettling and anxiety producing and risky. But without making the changes, you'll never know. And really, I
Right.
can't say enough how much it's changed my life.
Yeah, but it is a matter of just taking that step, right? And then
Mm.
allowing yourself to live in discomfort for a couple of weeks until you
Yeah.
go, oh, okay. I mean, in actual fact, when I say it like that, it feels to me like, uprooting your family and going and living in another country or something. For the first 2 weeks, you have this homesickness and you think, how am I ever going to make a life here? But
Hmm.
then you go, oh, this is starting to feel like life now.
Yeah.
This is starting to feel normal, and you get used to it. So it's kind of
Well,
the same thing.
yeah. Well, only constant life is change, and there's very few things that are good for us that don't have something slightly uncomfortable attached to them. Where our generation leads an extremely comfortable life in the Western world. We don't have to worry about our survival, our roof over our head, really, where the food's coming from mostly. If you've got a comfortable life, and so we don't have to be involved in our life. So it's easy just to sit back and watch the TV and read the papers and not think about it. But we're going down a very interesting road of ill health if we keep doing that. And making the changes allows you to take control of your life completely.
Yeah, especially when you think like our parents or their parents, they had a tough life in comparison to us, but even
Mm.
they had an easy life relatively over human history. But then you look at the generations coming after us, and it's like, it's getting worse.
Yeah, the extrapolation's phenomenal. My dad's 80 this year, so I took him down a trip down memory lane last year, and we went to visit all the houses he'd lived in as he was growing up. And his parents were sort of farm workers. My granny was a maid, and he showed me the house he lived in, just in a place called Teeling, just behind Dundee. And it's small cottage. There was a water pump at the bottom of the road, and at 5 and 6, he was away down there with a bucket, bringing the water back. There was no electricity, no central heating. And in Scotland, in the middle of winter, in that time, there was icing inside the windows. You had to bring your clothes inside the bed to warm them up and defrost them before you put them on. There was a bath once a week in a tub in front of the fire. And that's only one generation ago. And I've got two older children as well in their 20s. And my daughter said to me a couple of years ago, how did you ever go and meet your friends without a mobile phone? Well, we arranged, we went to the place, we met them if they went there, went to the house, and then if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. And it's just this concept of how did you live that life? I mean, I can't imagine living a life my dad did, and my daughter can't imagine living the life I did. So it's so changing so quickly, so quickly.
Yeah, I noticed that. I used to have a job at an English school where I was working with a lot of kind of Gen Z
Mm-hmm.
people, and like their reluctance to pick up the phone and talk to someone on the phone, and it was just like, oh, things have changed so much.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. I know, so fast, and it's just going to accelerate, isn't it? The younger generation have grown up being attached to a mobile phone, and that's just normal for them. And what that does to your brain is incredible. The early development of the human brain is so fast, and it's like a sponge, just sucks everything up to about the age of 7, and then you start to come out as a personality. So those first 7 years are phenomenally important.
Yeah, yeah. So, Simon, if someone said to you, "Look, I've seen how well you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give carnivore a try for myself.
Mm-hmm.
How do you recommend I start so that I give myself the best chance of sticking with this?" What would you say?
Depend on the person, because some people are really gung ho and would want to jump in straight away. And if that's right for them and they're strong enough to do it, then absolutely crack on. You just have to accept they're going to have some discomfort, but not necessarily, because we're all unique. So there are some people who just go bang straight in, and they're absolutely fine. Other people might have 3 days to 2-3 weeks of headaches and maybe diarrhea, some body aches, just as your body gets rid of some of the toxins and some of the bacteria it doesn't need. But for most people, I'd do a staged version. What I often say is give up grains, sugar, and vegetable oils to start with, and add in the main thing for me is meat stock. And an awful lot of people misunderstand what meat stock is. They think it's bone broth, but they're two very different things altogether. Bone broth is a very long cooked um, product, and it's quite high in histamine because of the long simmering time. And so for a lot of people that can actually cause problems. Meat stock is a short cooking time, so you want your cartilage joints, the meaty joints with all the collagen type tissue, and it's between 2 and 4 hours depending on the type of meat. So chicken be 2.5 hours, lamb, beef, anything sort of red meats up to 4 hours, and that's all. It's just the meat, water, and salt. And you take the meat out and then store it, and you want to have the meat stock every day. At some point, you can drink it, you can put it in stews, you can put it into casseroles, you make it as the base of soups, but it sucks the collagen out. Now, as you put it in the fridge, if it's been done well, it'll turn into jelly. You turn upside down, doesn't fall out the tub or the container. You want as many of the really cartilage type joints. So in the past, chicken feet and pig trotters, they're phenomenally good for creating that jelly. And that collagen is one of the most healing things you can put in your body. Almost every structure in our body is made of collagen, especially the gut lining. And so it just starts to heal and seal that gut lining, and that's where most of the toxins in our system come from, through those gaps in the gut lining. And many macronutrients in there as well that start to heal the body and provide it with fantastic nutrition. So as a first step, that's one of the main things to go for is meat stock. Get it in your life, work out how to make it, and just continue with it, because it's going to continue the healing. Also say that you're not always going to get effects straight away. You may have some beneficial effects, as my migraines pretty much disappeared after 30 days, but the healing can take a long time. It can take 15 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, depending on the person and how they are before they start. And again, everybody's unique. We all have a unique gut microbiome and makeup, and that's going to change and heal at different times. And then say just add in varieties of meat with what you can manage. Some people can manage some meats better than others. You have to experiment a little bit, because if you've not done it before, you don't know what's going to happen. So you have to try a bit of this, try a bit of that. I've also found that fermented dairy's also been very beneficial. Now in Scotland, because of a very old law, raw milk was banned roughly in the 1950s, I think. There were some cases of brucellosis and tuberculosis. But obviously the system has changed since then. The standards are much higher. The sanitariness of dairies is much higher. But through some quirk, I can get it sent up from England. So I get it sent up in about 30 litres at a time and make my own yogurt and kefir. And we experiment with many different strains of yogurt, because they all have different beneficial effects, and I have that quite regularly. And obviously our own eggs. Now I'm a bit sensitive to eggs, unfortunately. We make our own eggs, but I've gradually improved with that. So I can't have lots of eggs all the time, but I can have one or two occasionally, whereas in the past I couldn't have them at all. I was also quite intolerant to aged beef due to histamine. I had a ribeye, I'd be on the toilet pretty quickly afterwards. Now I can have two or three, as long as I don't go mad over days and days. I can tolerate that. So for me, that's a healing process that's gone on, and that's only happened in the last few months. So we're 16 months in, so people need to realise that they're not just going to miraculously cure straight away. Some people may well. In a few months, they may feel absolutely fantastic, and that's them for the rest of their life. But for others, they're going to go through stages. And as I mentioned earlier, your body's very intelligent. It's not going to get rid of everything straight away. I mean, the detox will be so powerful you'd die in an hour. So it waits. Your body waits until it feels strong enough. Then it'll dig down into something that's been sitting there it needs to get rid of, and it'll clear it out. And at that point, you're going to go through detox again. So for some people, a year in, suddenly they feel like they've fallen off the wagon and they're on the toilet again for a week, or they've got the headaches or the body aches. It's perfectly normal. Your body is just getting rid of things it wants to get rid of. You just sit with it, you back off a little bit, build up on the meat stock, eat what's comfortable for you, and wait, and it'll clear. And usually what happens afterwards is you actually feel better than you did before. And that's happened to me probably 3 times over the last 16 months. I've gone back to how I was. My gut's been terrible, like I've got IBS again, maybe for a week. Felt like I've got a stomach bug. Afterwards, things have improved. I was better than I was before. It's like your body goes through a healing process, and then you uptick to the next level. And I expect that to happen potentially in the future as well. And if it does, fantastic. I know it's not something that's going wrong with me. It's just my body saying, okay, now's the time to clear this out. So it's just listen to your body. It's telling you all the time what's going on. That's what all these symptoms are. It's your body showing you there's something wrong here. I'm working on it. And you can listen to that, or you can dumb the symptom down, which is what most medication does. Damps the symptom down, and your body will then say to itself, okay, you're not listening to that, I'm going to show you this instead. And if you keep damping the symptoms and damping the symptoms and damping the symptoms, eventually your body can't cope with it anymore. And that develops in a chronic disease. And that's the origin behind most chronic inflammatory diseases we see in the Western world. Is your body showing you something, you're not listening to it, and eventually it can't cope with it, and then it goes into overdrive of healing. And most of the symptoms we get are a healing effect. Your body trying to get rid of something it doesn't want. And it can be extremely uncomfortable. And for the people who don't listen to it and keep doing the wrong thing, it develops into a lifelong problem. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, like everyone's individual, and this is going to happen over different periods of time when they start to feel bad or whatever. And you also have to take into account people have been like filling themselves up with toxins for 30, 40, 50, 60 years before they're doing this. So it's not all just going to be gone in 2 weeks, right?
100%. One of the tenets of the GAPS protocol is that we inherit this from our parents and our grandparents, and because your microbiome seeded as you're born and even before you're born. And then in breast milk and in mothers who have a very toxic microbiome, they actually pass that on through their breast milk. So many of these babies who are really struggling, it's actually the breastfeeding that's causing it, which a lot of people really don't understand. So it goes way back. And if I'm doing an assessment with somebody, I will go back over their whole health history and their parents and their grandparents, just to see what the trends are and what could potentially be handed down. You tend to find that the actual problems get worse with every generation, because the toxicity levels, toxicity exposure levels are just higher and higher with every generation.
So, are you still doing like gaps counseling with people?
Yeah, yeah. So I worked out roughly. I've seen about 40,000 clients over the last 30 years with physio, and just I've developed off that a lifestyle assessment. So anybody that comes to see me, even for a physio complaint, will get their the medical history and their nutrition and their um, mental status, I guess you could call it, assessed, and that then gives a big picture and gives a much deeper understanding of why people are probably in pain, unless it's not an acute injury. Although even for some of these people, it can be related back to nutritional status, and then I'll give a treatment depending on what I find. And a lot of people that'll be nutrition. For some people, it might be hypnosis, and there'll certainly be some physio in there as well. And it's just treating the whole person because you can't separate your body, mind, and gut. It's all connected. Uh, each part affects each other. We're complicated beings for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things that always makes me kind of laugh to myself when I see hospitals and they have all the like everything is siloed. You know, you've got like cardiology and you've got all these different departments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but that's not really how the human body works. It's all
No,
like everything's dependent on everything else.
100%. We're extremely complicated organisms when you think of exactly what we are. I gave a lecture to a group the other day and was explaining to them that if you took all the blood vessels out of the human body, they'd stretch 1.5 times around the planet. You know, you have 70,000 thoughts a day. You can't think all those thoughts. You have to pay attention to certain thoughts. You know, new electrical impulses travel extremely fast. We're 80% bacteria. You know, if you spread the lungs out, they'd be the size of a tennis court. And you think, well, how can all that fit inside us? It's incredible. The chances of actually being here at all are quadrillions to one of all the people before us meeting, and two single cells turn into trillions in 12 weeks. I mean, most people don't give a second thought to how incredibly complicated and miraculous we actually are.
Yeah. So, Simon, if people want to reach out to you, how can they get in contact? Do you have a website or
Yeah,
some other
yeah. My business is
social media?
Health and Fitness Scotland. I'm also online as Simon Grant, although that's going to change reasonably soon, as I'm fairly new to the online podcasting world. So I really appreciate you having me on today. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll link to those below. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today, Simon. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience.
Very, very welcome. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for your time, Dave.